Today's interview is so good. Dr. Brathwaite, who is a therapist, a supervisor, she's been doing this work for over 20 years. And she's just like magnetic and has so much information and is also so cool. Today's interview is like a brain buster and I think such a good conversation. What did you think, Jane?
I totally agree. When we stopped the recording, we totally fangirled all over her. We were like, oh, you're so smart and you're all of this. And she's just, she's a very bright light. She's very, very smart. And she really, for me, helped me understand so many of the dynamics, particularly for Black and brown women around sex and therapy and the inherited trauma that they are up against. I thought it was really helpful and really enlightening.
Yeah. As I've shared on the podcast, I'm going through this whole sex therapy certification and it's actually really hardcore. It's multiple years long. It's hours and hours of online training, multiple workshops. I just finished what they call a SAR yesterday, and it's 2 days of sitting and watching porn, all kinds of porn that you never thought you would watch, and just dealing with all of these complicated feelings. So it's a really intensive training. I've learned so much, but that's how I came across Dr. B's work, is through the training. She is a graduate of my program, Sexual Health Alliance, and she did a training in the program all about cultural implications, like the fetishization of Black women and men, all these pieces that are specific to sexuality and Black and brown people. I was literally rocked by the end of her training. I think I had her even before I told you guys that I was going to email her, and I was like, she has to come on the podcast. And she did not fail to just rock my world again. Like I said at the end of the episode, I'm like sweating and hot. I mean, she just has so many great but also heartbreaking points that she brings to us.
I feel like Dr. B just really helped me understand and really clearly explains the experience of Black and brown men and women and queer folks, especially in relationship to sex and sexuality and being fetishized and all the family and religious and cultural dynamics. Super instructive. I think people will get a lot out of this interview.
Yeah, enjoy it. And maybe turn your air conditioner on, because by the end, you're going to be heated.
Yeah, get ready. Get ready.
Enjoy this episode. We'll see you next time. Welcome to Are We Happy Yet? I'm Hannah Buzzo, licensed therapist.
And I'm Jane Thatcher Hahn, licensed clinical social worker.
We're two longtime friends deep in the work of helping people untangle their lives.
And let's be honest, untangling our own along the way.
We started this podcast because even as mental health goes mainstream, more and more people are feeling anxious, disconnected, and burnt out than ever before.
So what gives? We're exploring how everything from therapy and psychedelics to culture, politics, creativity, and relationships shape our well-being.
Think of this as your weekly reality check, gut punch, and group hug all rolled into one.
We're here to ask the big questions, share what we're learning, and laugh a lot while we figure it out.
This is Are We Happy Yet? Let's get into it. Jane, I am so pumped for today's interview. I feel like we've had this scheduled for 2 months and I couldn't wait. And it's just going to be such a good one. Today we have Dr. Brathwaite on the podcast, and it's going to be such a fun conversation. So we talked a little bit about in the intro how we became connected with her, and she's just so cool and knowledgeable and has such an amazing life experience and work experience. So so excited to have you on today, Dr. B. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. I love it.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do, and what brings you all the happiness and joy in your work today.
Absolutely. So like you said, my name is Dr. Brathwaite, and I am a double social worker. I'm an MSW and a DSW. So I am an LCSWC. My main practice is in Maryland. So those are our letters here. But I also practice so it's Maryland, DC, Virginia, Georgia, Florida, and Michigan.
Wow.
I know telehealth has allowed me to expand. So some of that is clients, but some of it is just having therapists that are everywhere. And I have to be licensed where they are as well. So that's always fun. I do hold a substance abuse license in Maryland as well. For the past 15, 20 years, I've been a trauma therapist. So I've worked in foster care. I've worked with Baltimore, DC. I've worked with their school systems, their juvenile systems, just really dealing with a lot of trauma. Then I'm a mom to a 9-year-old. So once my baby came around, I was like, Trauma and foster care it's not, and being a new mom just did not go together. So I decided, I was like, okay, maybe it's time for me to take a break, but I didn't want to leave, the clinical world. So, I was like, well, what else is there out there? What is something else that I can do? And I realized that my practice was changing a little bit. I was getting a lot more older. When I say older, middle-aged Black women, and a lot of their issues surrounded divorce, sex, sexuality. And so when I was going through the different specialties, I realized, hey, sex, it's coming up. And it had a lot to do with the trauma work that I had been dealing with the sexual abuse and sex workers and that kind of stuff. But it also gave a little fun to the clinical world. And that's what I needed. Like I said, being a new mom, I was like, okay, maybe I can have some fun with this now. So I decided to pursue my sex therapy certification. And that's how I got here. So that is my private practice. I also am a clinical director of an outpatient mental health clinic in Baltimore. And I am the head of a residency program for online mental health clinic. So lots of moving parts that I enjoy all of it. I really do. Because a lot of my work is just guiding and helping new therapists. And, when you're in charge, you get to pick the cases you want. So every now and then I slide myself into something fun and entertaining. But yeah, that's me. And that's where I am now.
And you also do lots of clinical supervision and training of therapists that just come to you that want to consult and learn about the work that you do. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So whether they have found me through another therapist or, believe it or not, a few have found me through SHA. I'm going through the Sexual Alliance program, or if I've done a training or a consultation, they'll reach out to me. And if I have the space, I'll absolutely take them. I was fortunate enough to have some amazing mentors when I first started therapy and first starting social work. And so when I hear people who have these bad experiences or just feel lost out there, I'm just like, no, are you kidding me? I had a great experience. So I want to give that back and make sure they can have that too. So my private practice is actually therapy and consulting, but it's probably about 85% consulting at this point. Yeah.
What are the spots where therapists are struggling with the most as a supervisor?
I would say the biggest one is they haven't done the work on themselves yet. And so you start to see that creep out in a lot of projection, in a lot of treatment that I'm like, well, why'd you go here? And they'll be like, well, it's something that I would have wanted or I would have done. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. So having them really make sure they do the work. I hate to sound old, but back in my day, while we were going through school, we had to go through therapy. We had to put ourselves in that seat. A lot of people come to the therapeutic world, whether it's, social work or counselors, because of something in their past or someone that they have met. My story is completely different. I came to social work as a fluke. We can talk about that another time. So when I went through therapy, my stuff came out, and I didn't even know it was coming out. I was like, oh, that's a thing. That's an issue. That's something. And so I was like, well, I want to nip this in the bud because I can't be crying while they're crying over their stuff and I'm crying over my stuff. So one of the big things that I stress to my therapist is that they need to go to therapy. Even if it's just for a couple weeks to see how it feels to be in that seat, or because I'm seeing some of their stuff creep out, but go to therapy.
This is a perfect segue. So I did my SAR. I finished it yesterday. So Jane and the listeners, the SAR is this thing that you have to do to get certified by ASECT for your sex therapy certification. So Dr. B, you have that certification. I'm sure you've done many a SAR. And a big conversation in the SAR this week was just about culture and about how therapy, specifically sex therapy, is a newish thing, right? It really came about in the 60s and it came about with white men, running the field and not a lot of research on female pleasure and BIPOC folk. And so there's a piece there that came up this weekend that I really wanted to talk to you about the cultural aspect. And before we hit record, we looked at these stats and only 2% of psychiatrists and 4% of psychologists in America identify as Black Americans, while the Black population is much higher than that. So can you just talk a little bit about the cultural piece and how important that is?
Oh, absolutely. It is so important that I don't know if you guys can see. The name of my practice is Skinfolk Therapy because Thank you. I wanted to scream, this is us for us. Because one of the biggest hesitance of, Black and brown people going to therapy is that they want someone who looks like them, who is a reflection of their culture, their environment, their upbringing. The idea of someone judging you or not understanding you is huge.
Yeah.
So, my friends laugh at me because they're like, you're always recruiting people. I am, because for us to get people in therapy, we need people who look like us. And it's, that's a reflection of a lot of things that we do in life. Doctors, a lot women want women doctors, and as a Black woman, I want a Black woman therapist. I actually had to search for my supervisor for my sex therapy license because I wanted a Black woman supervisor because I knew that was going to be the bulk of my population. And I wanted to make sure I was staying true to the cultural aspects of that as well. And then you have other issues, of course, that are, you need Jesus, not therapy, which is huge. They think, religion is the end all be all. And I keep telling people, you can have Jesus and a therapist. Those two are not mutually exclusive. Like, we can absolutely do them together. So just breaking out of those type molds and, the molds of what happens in this house stays in this house, Unfortunately, that helps us, continue all these generational curses that I'm trying to break and scream and get out of. But when you've been taught to not tell your business to other people and to keep things that are happening in the home, you live and die by that. And, even if something is wrong, you are under this condition that you cannot talk about it. You are not allowed to say anything. But when you have people that are trying to help you, that grew up in that same environment or, that are still in that same environment, you get more comfortable and you start saying, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is a little different when it comes to seeking therapy.
And that what happens in the home stays in the home, or mistrust for particularly social workers or therapists. I mean, that has some deep roots in our history as a nation, right? And was an adaptation to stay safe and survive, right? So I imagine that that's a pretty difficult thing to address.
Huge. So so my story, I never wanted to be a social worker. That was not something like I strove to be. Literally my senior year during my undergrad program, I was scrambling to get the right classes together so I could go to grad school because this was not on my radar at all. And one of the first things I said when someone put it on my radar was, I was like, I don't want to snatch babies. I don't want to take people's kids, because that was the perception that I had of social workers.
Yeah.
And that's all I knew. So when you have this authority who has the ability to take your kids, to put them back, to put you in jail, to bring you home, to put you in treatment, that's scary. Even if you're not doing anything wrong or if you're trying to get help, it's scary. And I had that perception until my senior year of undergrad. I was like, I don't want to snatch babies. Like, why would you think that was okay for me to do? So those perceptions are real.
Yeah. And if it's majority white people in those positions, right? And then
Can you talk a little bit more specifically about misconceptions or cultural aspects in sex? Like I did one of your trainings on sexuality in Black women, and I just thought it was amazing. And so can you talk just more about how that shows up for Black and brown women and men, like specific maybe judgments, issues, things that they run across and have to deal with that maybe us as white people don't have to?
Absolutely. So one of the ones that I see a lot when I do get people that come in for, like, individual women that come in for sex therapy, or men, is that the expectation of them knowing everything about sex or being sexual is so high that therapists or coaches, whoever they are, they start them at like 50% or 60% instead of starting them at 0. So they'll come in and say, me and my husband, we're not having good sex. We're not doing this. And they'll say, well, just be sexy or just do this, with the assumption that they know what that means. They know what that looks like. And so they're like, I have one, they're like, I don't twerk. I don't do this. I don't wear lingerie. Like, that's not me. So they feel like they're not getting the help because they're already being put as a sexual person, that you should know this already. This is innate in you. And it's not. Believe it or not, the Black community is very conservative.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time that the reason why more Black people aren't Republicans is because of racism. It's really that big. Growing up, especially Black and brown girls, you're not allowed to express your sexuality. You're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to be curious. You know, whether it's about your body, about sexuality, about sex, any of that, you're not allowed to say what's happening to me, what's going on. Should I enjoy it? Should I not enjoy it? It's presented as something you give to men.
Yeah.
You know, save yourself so you can give that to him. You don't want to give your husband something that everybody else has already had. You know, you don't want to present as this, you know, sexual person because no one will make you a wife. No one will make you a mom. So we don't get the conversations about masturbation or about, hey, sex is to be pleasing for you as well. So we go through all this and then they expect you to get married. And then you get married and they're like, you better keep your husband, you better keep him satisfied. And they're like, how? You guys didn't let me ask any questions.
Right.
Wasn't allowed to, experiment, explore any of this. So it's this idea that we're not allowed to have these conversations, but you should be sexual. You should be this sexual goddess, everything out there. And so many are like, what do I do? How do I do this? And then when you're fetishized, when you have stereotypes and you think you've met a partner or somewhere, they're like, okay, you should know exactly what to do. You should please me. You should do this. And they're saying, they're like, so, I see it a lot where it's this expectation of them to be at 60% or 70%. And a lot of therapists or coaches come in thinking they're helping with maintenance or they're helping with something extreme where, no, you have to start at zero. You have to start at zero. So when my clients come in, the first thing I say is, well, what did you learn about sex when you were little? What was the view? Was it hush hush? Did you see PA? What does all this stuff mean to you? What does sex mean to you as a person? Is it an emotional connection, a physical connection? So they get that relief of, oh, okay, there's no expectation of me right now.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times there is an expectation.
And that can come a lot, what you're saying, from like white clinicians or white doctors, people in a position of whiteness saying like the expectation is that Black and brown people are really sexual and experienced. And I think you mentioned it too. It's something I've been learning a lot in my program about the fetishization of Black men and women, right? So, that judgment and that assumption of you should be at 60 or 70% and there's someone in your office that is not, right? And then you're harming them, I would argue, right? By making that assumption.
Not only harming, but you're turning them away from therapy, period.
Yeah.
They're like, that didn't help. That didn't work. She doesn't understand me. She doesn't get it. So you get turned off from sex therapy. You get turned off from therapy and you feel you're alone again. You're back in the shell of, I'm not going to be happy. This isn't for me. And then they proceed to live their lives like, this isn't for me. I'm just not going to be happy in this aspect of my life.
And when you both are saying 50 or 70%, are you saying like knowledge about sex or just sexual activity?
Both.
Okay.
Knowledge about sex and sexual activity. One of the things that, I love to do with clients, seminars, anything is I put up the anatomy of men and women. And I'm talking about like the real anatomy of what our clitoris and everything looks like inside. And I'm like, name these parts. And everyone's like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. And it amazes me because we've only seen, like when we go to doctor's office and stuff, you see the outside of the vagina. You only see like this little part. And then the inside, you're like, wait, what? So people don't even know their bodies.
Yeah.
They have no idea how big the clitoris is. Like if you took a male anatomy and a woman's anatomy, it is almost identical. It's just one is inside, one is outside. And so when people see it, they're like, wait, what? They're like, I have no idea. So that's one of the first things I just do is just give them the anatomy lesson. We talk about the nerves. The penis has 4,000 to 5,000 nerves, while the clitoris has we're at 12,000 nerves. So, when people say like sex is for men, I'm always like, yeah, no. I'm like, the clitoris has no medical purpose. None. No medical purpose except pleasure. Like if they take it out, not advocating for that, but if they take it out, like you don't lose anything. Like, it's not like you can't do this or you can't do that. And so everyone's like, no, sex is better for men. And I'm like, I'm not saying that it's not. But, and don't laugh when I do this, but I tell people, take your finger and put it in your ear. And I want you to go like this. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, what feels better, your ear or your finger? And everyone is like, my ear. And I'm like, exactly. So the penis and the vagina, if I'm putting something in it, just saying, it is more nerves working and it's more feelings working in there. So, when I start to teach women, like, sex is allowed to be for you. It's allowed to be pleasurable. You are allowed to say what you like and what you don't like. And a lot of people just don't know their bodies yet. So go through the bodies. So that's the first education. And then we get into some of the other sexual activities of, they're like, well, a lot of people still have like this Madonna complex where men feel that their wives should not do certain things. Like, you're my wife. You don't do oral sex. We don't, do these positions. And these women are like, but I don't enjoy this one position that he allows us to do. So just, opening up to different positions and how to talk about that and what that looks like in their relationship. So yes, it's everything from education of the body to education of sexuality to other things. We get a little happy and we go into different positions and different, sex languages and styles and everything. So a little bit of everything.
That's something I'm like surprised and not surprised if I've done this whole sex therapy journey. Like, I don't know why it's surprising because it's like everything in this fucking culture, but it's just like so backwards. And it's shocking to me, just the lack of any sort of accurate, relevant education about sex and sexuality. Like, I knew that, but doing this whole sex therapy journey, seeing that and like watching things and talking to more people about it, it's honestly shocking, but not shocking. And then I'm like, no wonder it's such a taboo. And no wonder so many people have so many complications with sex. And there's so much sexual aggression and abuse because it's so shadowed. And like all of the education and information we get, if we get any, is wrong.
Oh my God. I said that when I first started this journey and they take you back. Like I said, you start with the anatomy and, social and, cultural concepts of like sex and virginity and all that stuff. And all I kept thinking was, God, sex ed was so wrong.
Yeah.
Sex ed was so wrong. Like, they didn't teach us any of this. I have to teach that being a virgin is a social construct. It's not, I want to say it's not real. It doesn't, mean anything. I had to teach that every woman doesn't have a hymen and hymens look different. You cannot tell if a woman has had sex through a hymen. It's not scientific. It's like saying, have you ever used this fork before?
Yeah.
I can assume and I can guess, but if this fork came in a worn out position to me, I would assume that it's been used. Doesn't mean it has been. And that's basically what people are doing with the hymen. They're looking at it and says, well, you know what? This isn't a perfect in-place hymen. So you've had sex before, I've decided. No, that's not how it works. Everyone's hymen looks different. Some people have the veil, some people don't. And the hymen doesn't actually break, it stretches. So if you've had one, it's probably still there. It just more outlines you than is there. Some people have holes in it. Some people don't. I mean, it's a lot of misinformation out there.
And it's so interesting because that's been like, as I've been doing more training in the SAR, like everyone comes from a different background, right? And even on this call, Dr. B, I don't know you well, but Jane grew up Mormon. She is no longer Mormon. I grew up non-religious, but in a really conservative Southern household. You grew up in a Black household, and all of us were shamed, right? I can assume, given misinformation, shamed for sexuality, not learning this stuff. So even look at that, like out of three, like we did not get an upbringing that was sex positive or educational, right?
Oh yeah, not at all. When I was doing the SHOP program, you have to do like a project at the end. And I was like, well, I want to do a seminar. I want to like get a whole bunch of Black and brown women together and just talk. And so I put it out on like social media, on like Facebook and Instagram. And I was like, okay, if I can get 10 people to be interested in this talk, then I'll be good. I ended up getting about 60 women.
Wow.
That were ready to
That's
talk.
amazing.
And I was like, ooh, okay. When the doors open, they will walk through. Because everyone, like you said, no matter what your background is, everyone had questions, they had concerns, they wanted to talk. And it was like, wow, we are really doing ourselves a disservice by keeping this, so hush hush, in the home. Even it's so funny, even when I tell people what I do and I say, well, I'm a sex therapist and my son's around, they'll look and they'll be like, he's right there. And I'm like, he knows what his mama does. Like,
yeah,
it's okay. We're just saying sex therapists. Like we're not doing anything wrong. But that alone shows me, how we grew up and how things are still taboo and shamed. And it's like, wait, are we talking about that in public? Yes. We are.
We had a pre-call before this call a couple months ago just to connect. And I've been thinking a lot about some of these topics since then. When you mentioned the Madonna complex, I was in Mexico earlier this year and a Mexican explained this to me. So this is anecdotal from one person, right? But they said that what they experience in their culture is that there's like your wives and your sisters and your mothers who are kind of what you explained, like very pure, and you would never disrespect them and you would treat them very well. And then a lot of other women fall into this other category where it's like okay to treat them poorly and they are hypersexualized. And it maybe even is okay to, think of them in a more violent way. Can you speak more just to this like strange like these women are in this category and these women are in this category and they don't get to, there's no intersection for the women and there's no intersection in men's brains about how they think about these women.
Absolutely. And, we see this a lot when we talk about, especially right now when we're talking about protect Black women, a lot of men are only thinking protect Black women that are in my circle, that are in inner loop. Because like you said, these are the women that I respect and I love. And these are the only women that I have to respect and love. Everybody else is fair game. It's the idea that women only matter when they're connected to a man.
Yeah.
So when we say, like, think about it, when you, even now before, and you would go out and men would try to hit on you and you would say, I'm not interested. And they would keep coming. But if you say, I'm married, they say, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Why does my affiliation with a man matter in order for you to respect me?
Right.
So, and it's this whole idea of, like I said, you have to protect and love the ones that are in your immediate circle. And that's it. Everybody else is fair game. So when we talk about protection, we also are talking about that sexual protection.
Mm-hmm.
They're outside of that circle. So they're not seen the same. What was the joke? And I think it was like Goodfellas or The Godfather, where it's like Friday nights for wives, Saturdays are for girlfriends. That idea is still here. The idea of I am allowed to have a family, pure life, and then all my other stuff is done outside of my family, outside of my home. And we still have that mentality. And it's trying to get people to understand, like, it's not just the women that are connected to you. It's all women. But we, in our homes, we say that we protect your sister, protect your mom, protect your wife. It should be protect women, protect women, protect women. But we keep saying your sister, your wives, your moms. So we add to that when we don't include all the other women.
Dr. B, can you talk how that affects like trans people and queer people? Can you speak to that a little bit too?
Absolutely. So again, it's the idea that I don't have to protect you. Mm-hmm. You are not a part of my world. And two, it's this idea that, a lot of men are more angry with trans women because they're fooled. It has nothing to do with their actual sexuality.
Because they're what?
They're fooled by them. So if they see an attractive trans woman or they see a trans woman, they're like, oh, she's cute or she's this. And then they find out she's trans. It hits their ego. It attacks their masculinity. So it's the idea that I could have been attracted to you or I am attracted to you. Because most people understand the idea that what you do in your bedroom does not affect my bedroom. But the moment that it affects me in a bad way or it makes me look, now I'm angry. Now that's the whole thing. Because it's the idea that for whatever reason, they feel attacked or demasculated when they're attracted or somebody else is. Because if it can happen to him, it can happen to me. They're not in our world. So they're telling me I don't have to protect them.
Yeah.
My mind is, I haven't put that connection together. My mind's a little blown right now. Yeah. I mean, my mind has been blown since like the finger in your ear thing, but it just continues, I'm glad
some things are going to stick with you.
Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah. It's interesting. We had a trans woman on our last interview and she also helped us understand that the trans women are much more threatening to people than trans men for some of the reasons you're talking about. And I think just in general, misogyny and patriarchy and all of those pieces. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. And I want to honor that well, I'm not saying one person's experience is harder than another, but it's interesting to see how we relate to all these people.
Absolutely. And I think that's, especially with women, when we see, other minority groups, we've been there, we've seen it. So we understand it. And, when they talk about allies and they wonder why certain people are always the ally, especially, Black women, we're always looked at to be the ally.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, it's not a savior complex. We've been there already.
Yeah.
We've already been there. So we get it. We're still learning how to survive it.
You talked a lot about, and I'm learning so much just about how the underrepresentation of Black and Brown clinicians in the mental health field affects clients. What is your perspective on why there is a lack of Black and Brown clinicians and doctors? Why does that exist? Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. And it's going to come from a million different places. I think one is just the representation of seeing it, just knowing that this is an option.
Yeah.
Like I said, growing up, we didn't do therapists. I didn't know any social workers. All I knew is what I saw on TV. So just not having that as an option. I mean, we heard of course, when we were growing up, you could be a doctor, a lawyer, but it was never a therapist. It was never a clinician. So one, just not having that option of seeing it and knowing about it, that this was something. And then, of course, we go back to the cultural idea that this isn't an area that Black and Brown people do. We don't go into mental health. We don't go into therapy. So again, it's taking away some of those options from us. And then if somebody does go or somebody has had experience, it is always seen as this huge stigma of you're crazy. Something is so wrong with you that you had to go see a therapist. So, the idea is not only do I not want to go because you're going to label me as crazy or something is wrong, but I don't want to be one because now I'm going to be the person who makes people crazy. Now I am the person who is doing this to people. So the lack of education of truly understanding what a clinician is and what that means and what that looks like. Even with my therapist now, I have to explain to them sending a client for a psych eval, for, a medication evaluation does not mean they have to take medication. It is just a different eval that we want another person to look at. It's just like if I was a primary care doctor and I was like, oh, you know what? This foot looks a little, let me send you to a podiatrist. It's not saying that I can't handle it. It's saying I want somebody else to take a look at this. I want somebody else to see. And so just trying to get people to understand what it truly means to see a clinician, to have treatment, and what that means. It's not always something is wrong with you. You're crazy. You need medication. You should be locked up or any of that. It's the idea of, whether you need another specialty or you just need a little more help. But I think the education surrounding what we do is needed.
Yeah, you're talking throughout this whole time, very rationally, very science-based, lots of facts, all of those pieces, which I love so much. And also sometimes it's hard for those to land for people as we're seeing in the world, for all people. I do think that's the way forward in helping people get their hands on the information. But it seems hard for people to get accurate information. People are really confused with social media and all those pieces about what is accurate and what isn't. And then we all are just bringing all of our personal, cultural, familial, spiritual, religious ideas to those facts, which makes it hard.
It does. It does. One thing about social media that I've learned to love and hate is that I love that therapy has become so mainstream that we are talking about it. I have seen clients out at events and at different places, and they're like, that's my therapist. I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing. All right, say no more. It's great. I love it. But at the same time, when I watch these TikToks and stuff and these, people who are using our terms wrong, I'm like, one, everyone's not a narcissist. Everyone, is not bipolar. So it's such a love-hate relationship. So I just try to tell people, pay attention to who's saying it.
Yeah.
Are these truly licensed clinicians? Are these people, do they know what they do or do they just sound good? Because there is a difference. It's like I have this love-hate relationship with Dr. Phil and Ivania. I love them for the dramatics, but as a licensed clinician, I'm like, this is why they don't have licenses. They would have been snatched a long time ago. And if you watch the caveat to all their shows is for entertainment purposes only. And I'm like, do y'all miss that part where it says for entertainment purposes only? So it's, social media, I have such a love-hate relationship with it because like I said, I love when people are just asking questions and talking about stuff, but I'm like, get the answers from the right people. please get it from the right people.
That leads me to my next question. You've been doing this for over 12 years. And actually, I was just talking to some friends that are also therapists, and we were just bullshitting and talking about how like it's a really low number of people that get master's degrees that actually stay licensed in the field after 5 years. Like it's actually a shockingly low number. Can you speak to like how you stay in this field and energized and like joyful after being in it so long? I mean, it's not the easiest work in the world.
It's not. And so actually I've been doing therapy for 20 years.
Oh my God.
I think more of my like admin stuff came in like 12 years ago.
Okay.
But I've been doing therapy for about 20 years. And what I had to realize is I had to know when to take a break. Yeah. So I did like when I first came out of school, you have this save the world complex and you're like, yes, everyone, all they need is love and all they need is me. And you know, that high lasts for maybe 2 or 3 years. And you're like, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be. So anytime I feel that burnout, anytime I feel overwhelmed, I take a break, but I've learned to take a break within my field. So then I went to admin. And then I went to supervising, and then I'll come back to clinical, then I'll split it. And, you know, I've learned to maneuver my way through these 20 years of when it'll scream to you, stop, you need a break. Like you're overwhelmed, you're feeling it. At one point I was working 24/7. I was like, I have to put boundaries in. Yeah. Phone goes off at 6, not going to come on till 9. But I just listen to my body. And when my body says you've had enough, this is getting too much to you, I take a break and I stay in the admin world for a while. I stay in the training world for a while. With my young therapists, what I'm seeing is they don't have another outlet. They don't have a space to take that break. As a supervisor, one of my biggest things is what does your outside world look like? You know, when you're finished with therapy, especially in telehealth, because we're not in the office where after a bad day, we can say, hey, let's go to happy hour or let's do this, or hey, I need to talk to you after this session. We don't have that anymore. We're telehealth and we turn off our computers and most of us are in a space by ourselves. So I am really big on what do you have after this? What other avenues can you take? Is it time for you to go into admin? Is it time for you to do supervision? Is it time for you to train? Like, what does that, look like? I think that we go so hard in clinical that we forget we need to take a break. I tell people, it's very hard to be a therapist. People think we just talk to each other. And I'm like, no, think of it in the world of where you have 100 problems. I have 100 people's 100 problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, so when I see my therapist start to get there, I'm like, well, you're taking on way too many problems and you don't have a cutoff. So teaching them when to stop, boundaries. They're like, they keep texting me. Why are you allowing this? Please stop.
Yeah.
When it's time to discharge clients, because the frustration is real. When you have a doctor and you go to the doctor and you break your arm and the doctor's like, oh, let me fix your arm. They see what they did. I fixed that. We don't always have that in our world.
Yeah.
So you are draining. Am I helping? Is this working? What is going on? I don't know if this person is getting better or not. So trying to get them to understand that you're probably never going to see that with most of them, but you've instilled it in them. You've taught it to them. And, my clients tell me now, I can still hear your voice in the back of my head. Good. We should.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's a gift.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love your voice in the back of my head.
So I tell people sometimes that's it, but we have to pay attention. Like my supervision when I work with my client, and I love my my therapist and they know this, but I know all their business because I am like, something's wrong with you. What happened this weekend? I can see that face. Mom was here. What happened?
Yeah.
Like this is their space. So my job is not only to help guide you with the clients, but to help guide you professionally and make sure you're okay. Like, my clients are like, I don't think I can, my therapists are like, I don't think I can see anybody today. I'm having okay, cancel.
Yeah.
Cancel. They're not going to help anybody.
Yeah.
It's such a real thing. And Jane also supervises clinicians and so do I. And I think that's the piece too. Like, we're taught to be professional, right?
Yeah.
And this work, you have to be professional and have boundaries, but also you're a human being, right? So I think with newer therapists, same thing. Me and Jane talk about this all the time. It's like, I know something's up with you. I'm going to asking you and just talk to me, right? But there's this professionalism. I need to keep my professional hat on. This is my boss or my supervisor. It's really fascinating.
No, it is. And I when my therapists get comfortable with me, they're always like, oh, wow, like this feels good. Like, I'm like, I know we can throw this agenda out for today and focus on what we can talk about. Because it's not always about exactly what's happening with the clients. It's because your presentation is going to change. Your interventions are going to change. Your techniques are going to change. Your body language is going to change. And our clients are going to feel all of that.
There's just not another job where you have to do so much of your own inner work that I can think of as being a clinician. I just like, to your point, there's no feedback loop. Like there's no immediate feedback ever. And there's no one in the room with you. So clinicians are like, you can be doing a great job and your client could be getting, their mental health could be deteriorating, even if you're doing a great job as a clinician. That's a really difficult piece, right? And then you don't really get to just like not address your own stuff.
Right.
For better or worse, right?
Exactly. It's hard. And like I said, some of our clients don't give us anything. Like, that feedback, like you were saying, like we have no idea. I had one therapist that she was like, I think I need to discharge her. I need to refer her out because nothing is happening. It was like a 16-year-old girl and she had seen her for like 9 months. And she was like, she's giving me nothing. And so I was like, well, talk to the mom. And once she talked to the mom was like, are you kidding me? She's done a whole 180.
Yeah.
And my therapist was like, what? She was like, yeah, she's not going to tell you, but she's doing a lot better. Sometimes they hear us and they just won't let us know.
That's right. Like, you have a client who you've been seeing for a while, you think you're sold out, and they come in and they're like, I hear your voice in the back of my head. Right. This is the first time I've had good therapy. And you're like, girl, like that was not coming across.
I thought you hated me.
Exactly. I thought you hated this whole process.
That has absolutely happened to me before, where I'm just, because I do my own check-ins with my clients and I really just ask them, like, I'm like, hey, am I helping you? And they're like, are you kidding? And I'm like, oh, I'm not. Like, okay, thank you.
Good thing I asked.
Yeah.
One thing, switching gears a little bit. Okay, we talked about social media. Can you speak to Black women in pop culture, music, movies, TV, how that's affecting all of the things you've been talking about, especially in relationship to sex and the fetish piece that you guys have been touching on?
Yes. And I speak a lot to this in my Shaw stuff. The hypersexualization of Black women has been there since, forever. And we start off, we talk about Sarah Bartman in Our Body Shapes. And, she was the woman that was put on display because her butt was so big. But these were Europeans coming in, comparing African women to European women and their body styles and their body language. So we have, and this is back in 1800s. So we have a whole history of being fetishized and being shamed for our body. And this was, again, a point in time where Europeans are fully clothed coming into Africa and I say Africa as a continent, not as a country, because people are always like, be specific about Africa. No, I'm talking about all of it right now. Where they come into Africa, a hot, humid place where clothing is not as needed or as culturally beneficial to them. And of course, the judgments are there. So you are seeing many different body types. And they literally put this woman on display like a circus act. Matter of fact, she was bought by, I don't know if he was owned the circus, ran the circus or whatever, but it literally was a circus. And they put her in a cage and they went touring all around Europe, just showing off her butt, literally.
Like against her will, I'm assuming.
Yes, absolutely.
She wasn't like, please do that. Yeah.
No. So we can trace this back to forever about the body types and all this. And then, of course, when we go into slavery and, they started giving us names now. Now it's like Jezebels and, the idea that our bodies are so mesmerizing that we are manipulating white men to rape us because of our bodies. And this is everything from, making Black women nurse their master's children's and, they're breeding, they want more slave labor. But at the same time, they're being sexualized. They are saying that because of these body shapes, like it's your fault. It is your fault that you are built like this and you're enticing my man to rape you.
Right.
Crazy. And you're looking at, even Black men the same way, the fetish of, your penis size is so big or your height is so big that, it's not that this white woman wanted you. You hypnotized her, you mesmerized her, you manipulated her. And, so now our bodies are our fault. our sexualized bodies, are all fault. So we see all of this going up, and then we get to a point where, our body parts are made fun of, right? Mm-hmm. Your breasts are too big. Your lips are too big. Your nose is too big. Everything is too big. It is too sexualized. And again, it's just big. They're not walking around naked. They're not saying, hey, come do me. I want this. Mm-hmm. It's just because of the proportion size compared to, European Americans or Europeans and Americans. So we get to this idea where, they try to make people feel bad about it. And, they're now, Black women are trying to hide it. They're trying to say, okay, well, if I do this to my butt, if I do this or whatever. Mm-hmm. So we go through all of these stereotypes of what this looks like. And then we finally get to this place where it's like, Black is beautiful. And Black women are like, yes, finally, I can show off my hair, my lips, my butt, my curves, and all of this. And then society was like, well, let's run all the way with this and hypersexualized Black women. Mm-hmm. So we are always like the mistresses in the movies. Yeah. We're half naked in videos and shaking. So it was the moment that we became comfortable and said, yes, Black is beautiful. It was like, okay, now we're going to hypersexualize you guys and we're going to run with this. So, and it never really stopped because it allowed for that conceptualization of Black women manipulate white men into wanting them, into raping them, into this. So it helped with that idea that I'm allowed to treat you like trash.
Yeah.
Because technically you're really doing this. It's not me. It's
right.
You that are doing this. So, and I feel like we're still, we saw this a lot in the 80s and the 90s, and we're still there. We're still looking at, she's a gold digger. She's this, she's that, because she's comfortable with her sexuality or just because she's sexy.
Right.
So, yeah.
I can feel myself like getting hot and sweaty. It makes me so angry, right? Because it's just like a setup for failure. Like it's your fault for being sexy, for your body that you have no control over. And if you're not sexy, it's also your fault. And there's something wrong. It's just like never gets it. It's never enough, right?
Mm-hmm. No, it is. I will never forget. I was working at this job and we were doing pictures. You just do the pictures for like the website and, brochures. And I was wearing a sweater dress and some, knee boots. And one of my coworkers, a white woman, was wearing the exact same thing. I mean, just different colors. And I will never forget this man asked me, he was like, don't you think you're a little too sexy for this picture?
Wow.
I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you don't think you're dressed a little too sexy? And I said, well, me and her were in the same thing. So is she dressed too sexy? And he was like, no, you're just putting your sexuality out there. I said, no, you're noticing my sexuality. You're making my sexuality come out. And I feel like we have to start calling out people
that's right.
like this. Because I said, well, what is the difference? And he was like, well, you're just eluding it. You're just putting it out there. No, you're feeling it. You've decided that I was sexy. You decided that my sexuality was out there, but you made that my fault.
Yeah.
Well, that story is making the hot and sweaty even worse.
See, I know. I'm like, guys, I wish we had air conditioning in this old house because
I will never forget it. And I was fortunate to have this amazing coworker, a male, and he, kind of stepped in and was just like, if you can't help notice Dr. B's body, that's your thing.
Yeah.
And the guy just kind of like left it at that. But I will never forget. I was just like, I'm just here to take a picture.
Well, Dr. B, we could talk to you forever and we're already over time. So could get you on the screen and talk to you forever. If folks are interested in connecting with you, I know you have an online presence, just learning more about you and the amazing work that you do. Where can people find you?
Yes. So you can find me. My website is skinfolktherapy.com. On TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, it's just at Skinfolk Therapy. Very simple. I know. I was like, wow, this is still available for me. But yes, you can reach me there, whether it's for, consultations, therapy, anything. Just go ahead and DM me and I'll let you know what's available. I do a lot of seminars, a lot of trainings that I absolutely love. So anytime somebody wants to, get a hold of the schedule, just let me know.
And do you do those online? People outside of the DC area would be able to access some of those?
Yes, okay. Absolutely. Of course, in the DMV area, I'm in the DMV area, so I do try to do some in person, but most of them are going to be via Zoom.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. B. This was such an amazing conversation.
Thank you for inviting me. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. You've been listening to Are We Happy Yet? A Green Roof Studios production.
This episode was recorded and produced by Hannah Buzzo, Jane Thatcher Hahn, and Eamon Downey. If you liked what you heard, rate, review, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it.
Every review on Apple or Spotify helps us grow and redefine what it means to be well in an unwell world.
Thanks for listening. Try to stay happy out there.